us why he said morning.
What did he say? Say it again.
When I was younger, no matter what time of the day it was, the very first time I saw my dad, it did not matter what time I would have to greet him as saying good morning. So, because it's the first time I said, you guys, good morning.
Right.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Still remember tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay.
But I guarantee you I'll say good night after the end of this.
Oh, okay.
That's too funny. All right, guys, so good to see everybody again. This Monday, we're gonna talk a little bit today about another one of the topics on our training sheet that you guys gave us by telling us what you wanted to hear about, which was filling out some of the paperwork. One of the things, well, I guess one of the topics, challenge, not say topic. One of the challenges that I see with the authorization form is how it's presented. How the authorization form is used in the field and asked to be signed in the field. And we want to take some of the sting out of it, if that makes sense. So that's what we're going to do a little bit today. Now, again, you guys can put some questions in the chat if you would like, and we will see them there. We'll also ask if anybody has any questions. You can raise your hand or your electronic hand and let us know. We'll answer them there. So when we're talking, if a question pops up, just hit that button to raise your hand, your electronic hand, and we will call you. Let me see where my little where my hand raiser is at on here. Let me open up my screen so I can see it. Let's see, where's that? There we go. All right, so for those that don't know where it's at, if you go to the little reactions button on your screen, it should be a little reactions button that has like a smiley face with a little plus sign up in the upper right-hand corner of the happy face emoticon. That is your reactions button. If you click that, there, and that depends on what device you're on too, but it should be a big old raise hand button on the bottom, rectangle, under the other options. So you can use that to raise your hand if you have a question while we're going over this information. If you still can't find it, just raise your real hand and we'll call on you. So you're gonna be talking about authorization forms and some other, maybe a few of the other forms if you guys have questions, but I think our top form that we want to discuss is how to get that authorization form signed and not to call the company and say it in a way that forces them to not do it or suggest that they not do it. So I think some of you all are having that problem. At least I can tell by some of the calls I get or the emails I get about that authorization form. So if anybody has had any challenges with the authorization form, go ahead and put one in the chat, and that will help us a little bit here if you do that. We're gonna get started with our normal introductions and then we'll go from there. All right, so Miss Sharanda, if you can go ahead and introduce yourself. I don't know, was John here with him? Look for his name on screen. All right, so if John jumps in, I'll let him in, but you can go ahead and get started with your introduction, then I'll do mine, and we'll go right to this authorization form and maybe a couple of other forms.
Okay, Sharanda Ivy out of Byron, Georgia. Been with Legal Shield now. This is our 10th year. June will be our 10th year with 50K ring earners, CDLP certification trainers, recognized twice as Field Trainer of the Year. We've earned the 1000 Production Award. And we are Sapphire Elite Associates. Focusing on this space here. Actually brought those accolades and just choosing this as my major and my minor. So I do host an accountability call on Thursday night. So for those that would like to jump on that, that's more like a mastermind, give accountability, and you're welcome to join us The sign up sheet is on the CDLP Facebook page. It's pinned at the top. So over to you, Dunbar.
All right, so let me ask this question again, because maybe we don't need to talk about this particular form tonight. Because only one person said that they've had a problem with it. So that could mean that only one person tried to fill it out and had a problem with it. Or that could be nobody has a problem with it. So do you guys think the authorization form is a good topic? Because nobody put one, but now 2 people, and it's 30 people in here. So should we be talking about something else? I'm going by what y'all said in the beginning of the year. I said, what y'all want to talk about? Y'all said authorization form. So unless something changed, I mean, are y'all away from y'all's computer? Can y'all not hit y'all's number 1? Talk to me here for a second. I don't want to waste y'all time and talk about authorization forms if y'all got that sewn up. Oh, another question. How many of you all have used the authorization form to open up a group before? That might help to know that too. If you have used an authorization form and opened up a group before, put a 2 in the chat. Right. Right. All right, okay. Good seeing where everybody was at. All right, so one of the things that we want to talk about when it comes to authorization form is not just about filling it out, because most of the authorization form is pretty simple to fill out. Like as a Legal Shield or PPLSI associate, you know how to fill out the form. I think one of the biggest challenges is how it's presented to the decision maker to sign it, and also the idea that you should be filling out most of that form before you get to them. Does that make sense? So if that makes sense, put a 3 in the chat. If you are not, NOT, not filling out a portion of that form before you get to that decision maker appointment, whether it's virtual or in person, put a 3 in the chat. If you are showing up to that appointment, oh, I'm sorry, 4. Thank you, Mr. Norris. 4. Put a 4 in the chat if you are showing up with a blank form for them to sign. All right, good stuff. So how many, put a 5 in the chat if you are showing up and you have the name of the company, the address of the company, the phone number of the company, the email of the company, and the EIN number of the company already in the form when you meet with them, or virtually or in person. Doesn't matter. If you have all that information in there already, go ahead and put a 5. Come on now, look at them numbers, lighten up. They were waiting for that question. Good, good. So that means y'all got that part, right? So it should be filled out somewhat before you get there. So somebody somewhere taught you guys that, whether it was a field training or you just learned it in one of the trainings that you took on business solutions. So make sure that that authorization form has been filled out with as much information as you can put on it ahead of time. So put a 6 in the chat if you put all the plans on there beforehand. That means all the plans that you can possibly sell them, you put that on the list of plans that are available to them before you have them signed it. If you do that, put a 6 in the chat.
Remember, let me talk about that when you're ready to.
Oh, you can talk about it as soon as they put these 6s in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Corporate has kind of so like, you know, years ago we would put everything we could offer them, right? Because somewhere along the way we would want to. So so like Alan, you know, he teaches that he only starts with the legal and CDL. Like that's his thing. He ain't gonna sell no ID Shield plan. He, you know, he's just starting to get into small biz a little bit, but that's his focus, like legal and CDL. That's his thing. All these years, that's what he's selling. So knowing that he probably, he might be cross-selling something now, but knowing that, I don't even know how he do his authorization form, but corporate wouldn't want him to only put those two, because that they know that's what he's offering. Versus putting everything that they can buy, if that's all he's going to offer them, that's all they want on there. Like, he ain't gonna go back and offer them nothing else. So they kind of get not offended, but they are at the point now that the agents at corporate kind of question the fact with all those different plans, if we put all of them like we used to on there. So you have to be kind of careful, because they really don't want all of them on there. Those, especially if you're not gonna, try to cross sell with that.
So,
Just FYI.
a question for you, Sharina, before we leave that subject. I'm sending something to somebody in the chat. So what's the process now? Because I know what the process was if I open up a group and I put legal identity theft or CDL legal identity theft plans, because I'm gonna offer that when I go and talk to this company. That's all I plan on offering. I'm not even looking to cross-sell the small business plans for whatever reason. That's my scenario. What happens when I decide to add more plans? Do I just send an email to corporate? Do I pick up the phone and call? And to my
you probably could send an email for them to add. But if you're going to, they may question you though. If you're gonna go back. Or just say you had a driver that, like me, I kind of now, the last group I opened was in January, and that group, me personally, that group, I only put CDLP and legal, and I think I put the $99 and $14 plan on there. If I offer anything, just say one of the drivers called and said, "Girl, somebody done stole my identity. Like, can y'all help with that or something?" I might have to, email corporate and have them to add that to my group then, but I just know that they are, they don't really want all those plan offerings on there, especially if you're not gonna try to cross sell and sell them. But yeah, call or email to answer that.
Good stuff. And let's stay there for a second. So how does this work? I'm selling a CDL plan in the group space. I'm doing an authorization form, and I'm thinking these drivers are all over the different states, may have legal situations that pop up in other states. What do I do about that? Is it okay for me to use the family plan where I live at to cover me everywhere? Or do I need to put the different family plans on there because they may have a legal situation in another state? On the family side, I don't see the CDLP side.
The family plan coverage is nationwide, so no matter where they are. So
they don't need to put the New York plan, they don't need to put the whatever other plan that's different. I know I've got a couple plans that's different on the state side.
Oh, no, I mean, I haven't sold a driver in New York, I'm be honest. But it would be different if the person, So if they lived in New York, if they lived in New York, their legal plan got to be in New York.
Right.
How that goes.
And I only asked that question because I know that that'll come up. So you basically answered it the first time. If that driver lives in South Carolina and they get a situation that happens that's non-CDL related, but it's in another state, the South Carolina law firm is going to help them. But of course, I'm asking that question just because I know it may not be posed here, but somebody may not know that. So when you're putting your plans on there, if you're thinking, well, what if they need a legal plan in another state? Know that their state plan is going to cover them. And obviously, if it's a New York truck driver and you're prospecting a company in New York, to make sure that you sell them the New York plan, on the New York plan on the family side, not on the CDL side. If you can get them outside of New York to sell them the CDL plan, that would be better for you. But on the family side, you gotta sell them the New York plan if that's where they reside at. So that's how you do that as well. Anything else on that before we move to the next question, Fran? Good.
Good.
All right, so check this chat real quick. All right, so how many of you all follow? I had a conversation with an associate. I don't know if she's here now, but I had a conversation with an associate the other day who said that they could not talk to the company's drivers at all, meaning they couldn't have a conversation with them. They couldn't talk to them as a one-off. They couldn't do a group presentation. They couldn't do any of those things without having the authorization formed, a signed form before they do that. So if you feel like here with us today that you can't talk to the drivers, you can't do a presentation, even if you sat in the lounge and talk to the drivers one at a time to see what their interest was in the plan, you can't do any of that until you have the authorization form signed for the company and in the hands of corporate before you could do that. If you feel like that's the case, then put a 7 in the chat. Put a 7 in the chat. Going once, going twice. Good. All right. So we'll need to address that. So y'all all know that you can present without that. So that's good. Because I had somebody call me the other day that thought that they needed to have all that done to present. So we know that the general audience doesn't feel that way. Anything on that, Sharanda?
What was the question? What was that?
Whether or not they needed to have the authorization form signed before they did anything. Talk to the drivers, talk to anybody.
The associate said they needed it?
Yeah, they were told that. Yeah, by their field trainer.
No, because
Yeah,
sometimes
the field trainer that told them that meant well, because they told me who the field trainer was. So I knew who the field trainer was. They were just a field trainer that was just going off of, I guess, because I know at one time corporate they used to say that. They would say it, they would put it in the air, but it wasn't really a field thing where, oh no, you can't go talk to the company unless you have authorization form signed. And I guess that field trainer was thinking that was still the case, where that was a hard rule where you couldn't have a conversation with these drivers, and whether it was a regular group or a CDL group, it doesn't matter. But whether it's drivers or regular employees of a company, you could not have the first conversation with them without the authorization form being signed. So basically corporate saying that we have a right to talk to those employees, which is not the case, but we know that it happens. So that's why I asked the question.
oh, yeah, no. No, it don't work that way. No, long as that company's not a group. I mean, years ago, I used to do like vending to companies. Like companies would allow me to come in and, sit in a room or whatever, or participate at a benefits fair. I got I know 3 groups from years ago, cities. Some cities don't put you on as a vendor, but they'll let you participate in their benefits fair. And the difference is that most of the time it's like payroll versus bank draft. So, and that's how it was. They would allow you to come to the benefits fair and you'll be there like with the local gym people, maybe a local eye center, or, sometimes it could be an Aflac rep. But we were considered direct, like we weren't on payroll, like they wasn't a payroll benefit. They could get the benefit, but it wasn't a payroll slot or whatever. And then they will also have like another meeting for like the insurance people, all the payroll people, that was considered open enrollment. But I got like 3 cities by doing that for, I know, at least 3-4 years. And then I got the call. I'm thinking like 2 of my cities. That's how I got them. I got a call one year and they wanted to add Legal Shield as a payroll deduct benefit. But I started out going just as a vendor. It wasn't a yellow card on that account or anything.
Good stuff. I opened up most of my small group business in at that time. When I was in the, like, just going and opening small groups and opening them 1 or 2 groups a month, that's what I did. I did most of my small business openings through Lunch and Learns. And I never got the authorization form signed until after I did the presentation at the Lunch and Learn. It was never beforehand. I mean, I may have been beforehand a couple of times, but for the most part, it was the Lunch and Learn, and then I went with those applications. And we'll get to that a little bit later too, how we do that in this today. But I'm just asking these questions first, just to figure out what people are doing and not doing already in the audience. So that's what I would do. Go ahead.
When we used to have 3 to 5, well, we used to have 5, have to have 5 apps. That was how I got 5 apps. And then that's when they would sign the group authorization form, when you had the participation.
Right.
Yeah.
And what was the line, right? Look, all I need is one person.
You allowed me to talk to your employees, and I have the number amount that we can give your employees a discount. And they would, that's when they would sign the group authorization form.
So,
but yeah, they'll let you in and talk to them all day, and that was your thing to go back and say, hey, got some guys or got some employees interested. I definitely can get them set up and give them a discount.
So it's very, and I want you guys to look at this on a mindset side, right? Initiative, motivation, the wantingness to do a specific thing. One thing I learned about authorization forms is that I'm way more motivated to get it signed when I got 4 or 5 apps in my hand that can't be processed without it, versus me going there and trying to get them to sign the authorization form before I ever do a presentation. So one thing I can promise you is Jackie is not going to not sign that form when I got 4 apps that need to be processed, because I'll be standing outside of her car when she get off work. Because I need my apps processed and I need my money. So you have much more motivation when you have apps in hand. It's an easier conversation, and we'll talk about how to have that conversation here before we close out. But I just want to continue with the questions just to kind of see people ask. So this one's going to be more of a yes or no, or more of a yes or no question on this one. Can you open up schools as a group? Can you open up schools as a group without an authorization form if it's a bank draft group? Yes or no?
Our groups have to be opened up with the group authorization.
Joanne, you can't be messing it up. You don't answer it already. You a certification trainer.
Oh, I thought you was asking me. Oh, my bad.
I was asking the audience, but they know now. Look at all the no's. Let me see the no's pop up now. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's talk about that. So hold on. Okay. No. All right, good. So know that I want to talk about this because know that you can go into the schools. You do have the ability to go into the schools. This is how I open up most of my schools. Without going through the district if you've tried and you've been turned down. So if the school district is not letting you in to open up this group with these schools, right? And if you want to sell the CDL membership to the school bus drivers in that circumstance, you have the ability to. My experience with the school bus drivers, a lot of them don't get the plan because they don't make a lot of money. There's different challenges with them getting the plan. So I normally end up just selling them the regular family plan, just so you know, but you do have the ability to, so just know that in your mind. When you open up go try to open up a school district, if you are running into any brick roads, meaning you can't find the right person, they're just not letting you through, it's a bunch of red tape. Know that a lot of times, if you find out from corporate that the school district is not a group, so make sure you know that, so you're not going into some schools and they're already somebody's group, that you can go into the schools and open up those schools as individual groups on bank draft if you choose to. Does that make sense to everybody? So put, what I want you to put in the chat. Put an 8 in the chat if you knew that already. Make sure y'all woke over there. 1. Gene, Stella, come on. Get some answers here. We get some answers here. So that's a good way, particularly for different, yes, they do get the discount, Debbie. Any group you open up gets the discount, whether it's bank draft or what do you call it? Payroll deduction.
Oh, okay, good. That's good to know.
Yeah, payroll deduction or bank draft group. Always you still get the discount. So when you're going in to open up a group, one of the things I did for schools is I just did lunch and learns, and I did them on their scheduled meetings, and I would just call it teacher appreciation, and I would go in and I would open up those groups. Now, every area is different, so there's those meetings on different days. I know where I'm at in Florida, particularly, I did not have to put the EIN number for the school on the form because it was a school. I wasn't required to. Corporate didn't have a problem with that I didn't have one on there, and I was able to open up my schools, one school at a time in that particular district, and I was able to open them up with an authorization form, but not use the EIN number. So that is something that you can do with the authorization form. So anything on that, Sharenda? Good. All right. So now let's talk about that conversation with the authorization form. So one of the things I see thrown out there is people will tell the client, the safety director for the trucking company, whatever kind of group you open it up, that you need to get this form signed in order to open up the group. So if you've done that before, put a 9 in the chat. Hey Jean, hey Christella, hey Earl, hey Leland, hey Vanessa, I need to get this signed before I can open up this group. If you've said that before, put a 9 in the chat. Two people, that's it? 3? 4? See, y'all not by y'all computer, y'all not being honest, y'all never open up a group. Something going on here, something wrong with them numbers. We got 4, got a couple more on 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so let's talk about that. When you're using the authorization form to open up your group, it's always better to have applications already. That's always good. But if you're going to do that sit down DM and you don't have any applications because you haven't presented yet, you're just simply going in to do that decision maker appointment and you want the authorization form signed before you leave that meeting, right? If that's your scenario. When that happens, always make the authorization form beneficial to your decision maker. Does that make sense? Never make it about you. Never make it about PPLSI. Don't say that you need to get it signed because it has to be authorized for you to come in. Don't say in order for me to do this or PPLSI to do that, right? I need you to sign this. Because if you make that person feel like they have that kind of authority, that will sometimes backfire on you. One, because they may not want to exercise that kind of authority, so they'll hit you with things like, "Oh, let me talk to my supervisor or my boss or the owner of the company because I'm not sure if I have the ability to sign it." You may get that pushback. Or if you tell them that it's on them now, that person is thinking if they don't sign that, you can't open the group, and they may not be sure they want you to do it in the first place, and now they figure if they don't sign that, you can't open the group. Does that make sense to everybody? So you don't want to put the power in the other person's hands that way. What you want them to feel like is the hero. You want them to feel like they're doing something, they're accomplishing something by doing that. That's why it's always good to have applications in hand when you go to do it. So if you can have applications in hand, that is the best way to do it, in my opinion. But if you don't, let's deal with not having them first. If you don't, no, let's deal with having them first, because that's the easier conversation. If you have applications in hand, all you have to now say is look, Christella, I hope I'm saying your name right. Hey, Ms. Christella, I did the presentation. Thanks for letting me come in and present to your staff or your drivers. But I do have about 6 people who want to get the benefit here. So what I need to happen now is I want to be able to give them the discounted rate. So by you signing this form, this will allow me to give them a discounted rate. And also, if any one of these drivers end up having a problem with you or the company at this point, from this point forward, they can't use this membership against you. If I get any pushback from Christella after I say that, and she's like, well, I'm not really sure because it's that, and I said, now just keep in mind, these 6 applications, I'm giving it to them at a discounted rate. They can actually get this anyway. So even if you don't sign this form and they decide that, okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and pay without the discount because I really do want the membership. At that point, now they're getting in there. If they decide they want to use it against you, they can, because they can always use the membership against you. But if you sign this form, this prevents it from being something that can affect the company negative. Now that person is thinking, and remember the CDL membership is we talking about $32.95 versus $29.95. You're talking about a $3 difference, guys. A lot of those drivers are gonna get the membership anyway. You follow that? So if they decide they're gonna get it anyway, now they can use it against the company. Now that person is thinking, it'd probably be good for them to just go ahead and get it through us. So that will help make them make that decision when you're moving forward with that. Is that fair, guys? So I want you to use this authorization form as a way to say, hey, let's go ahead and get this closed out. Let's get them a discounted rate. Let's make sure these drivers can't ever use this against you by having you sign this. And then they're just gonna go ahead and get it signed. And you pretty much have gotten your authorization form signed. Now, let's say you don't have any apps in hand. Let's say you're going to do this presentation, do this DM presentation. And because this person has not let you present yet, you have this authorization form and your goal, right? You set a goal this morning when you went out to go to this DM that you would come back with your authorization form signed. Then you would basically use the same information, but you just don't have the power of the apps being in hand, right? So now, right, I'm talking to Debbie and I sit down with Debbie and I go through my whole presentation with Debbie, and Debbie says, I think this is good. I think my drivers can use this. So let's reconvene. Let's figure out, what's going to be the best way for you to get in front of the drivers and blah, 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 right? That conversation happens. And then I say now to Debbie, I say, so Ms. Debbie, before I leave, I want to make sure I lock in a good price for your drivers. So I want these guys to have $29.95. By you signing this form, this will give them a discounted rate. And also I want to make sure that these drivers can't use the membership against the company, use the membership against you. Even if y'all let them go and they're in another company, even if they pick this plan up 5 years down the line, they still can't use it against the company. And you signing this authorization form protects the company from that while allowing them to get a discounted rate. So if I can get you to go ahead and sign this, then we'll be complete. Now I can go ahead and move on to the next step, which is coming out to your safety meeting. Does that make sense to everybody? Nothing in that presentation about signing it or a group can't be open enough. Don't put that language in there. Allow them to feel like and really it is. You're not really allowing them to feel like you are giving them a discount rate because they signed that form. That is preventing them from being able to use the membership against the company. So those are facts, but you want to lean towards those facts, not lean towards the idea of I need to get this signed in order to come in and present. Because I don't care that Anthony is going to make money on this presentation and he wants to present this membership. That may not matter to me. It may not matter. So people do what benefits them a lot of times. I'm not saying everybody's like that. I know you may be thinking, I do stuff for other people, that's great. But most of the world is not concerned about what you need when you come to them. That's just the reality of it. So when you go to do that presentation, it's a sales presentation, make sure you project to them that them signing that authorization form benefits them the most because they'll let you come in and talk to those drivers. So if that makes sense, put a yes in the chat. Shran, you got anything you want to add to that? Good. All right. So does anybody have any questions about any of the other forms that you're dealing with when you're going into the process of enrolling a company? Going once? Going twice? I don't see no hands, I don't think. Do I? No, I don't. Okay. Oh, Anthony, I'm sorry about that, bro. Go ahead.
I have a question for you pertaining to forms. Actually, this is New York. I see a lot of trucks coming through Ohio. Okay. And so when I look it up, it says New York. And I know it's a different plan, but those vehicles are out of New York. How do I go about that if I wanted to? I don't want to sign up anybody in New York in that plan. How do I go about signing up the drivers. Let's say I talk to the decision maker, they like it. And they sign the group authorization form.
Mhm.
How do I go about signing up those drivers outside of New York? Make sense?
It does. Shredder, you wanna hit that?
CDLP plan is based off where the driver is standing, not where the company is based out of.
Correct. So the other question then to that is, do I just fill out a paper application because the paper application and then submit it that way? Because I do believe it does not ask that in Shield at Work. Is that correct or incorrect?
It's just the company is based out of New York.
Mhm.
So it's based off where the driver is standing. So if you thinking that because the company is based out of New York, that it's gonna just be the New York plan, then a paper application would have to be done if that's how corporate does it. I mean, I've never set up a company based out of New York. So so if that's how corporate sets it up, where it's a New York-based company and they only allow you to put New York plan on there, I guess you would have to, when you fill out the group authorization form, you would have to put the different types of plans since New York has its own plan. I mean, I've never done that, so I can't say that it'll be just a New York plan on there. I guess you would have to put it on the group authorization form, the New York plan, and maybe you put the regular basic plan on there as well. And yeah, if you do where they're standing at and all you got on there is the New York, you would have to, but they have to, I'm sure corporate would have to put the basic on there because they could be standing in another state when you write them. So, but however, that's how it is. I don't know if they considered that it'd be just a New York. I think I've had something like that come up before about something. I don't know which state it would have been, but George had that. George, remember that, George? George, I don't know if he's here.
You talking about Caballo?
Yes, I'm here.
George, you remember when we had that group? What state that was? And we had to, remember we had to get something added because it was a different state. When you went to go put in the drivers, the option wasn't there and they told us it was something. But however, write the group up, all I can tell you about New York, and if they, you have to, I guess, put the New York plan on there and try to put the regular basic on there too. But if they're standing somewhere else, you would definitely have to do a paper application if they have, if they make it a New York-based company. I just can't really explain it, I guess. You just have to go through the process with corporate on that.
So my experience.
What happened?
Oh, go ahead, George. Go ahead, George.
What happened was I had a couple of drivers that lived in New York. The company wasn't in New York though, but because I had a couple of drivers that lived in New York, I had to do exactly what Anthony stated. They were standing out of the state, but corporate saw the address on the apps of New York, so they included the New York/Nevada plan on the group plans of the descriptions for them to be able to get the different plans. So they automatically included the New York plan in there. Not because the company was in New York, but because the drivers that I had, which was quite a few, their home addresses were New York.
Yeah, because when George went to put them in, when he put their address in, the basic would go away, right, George?
Yes.
The basic would go away. It wasn't offered.
Exactly.
So, yeah, so we've had that issue, but like I said, that was something we dealt with corporate and they
Yes.
did it.
And another part of that answer too, on the setting up, because I have set up one New York CDL company. And when you set up a New York CDL company, they will assume that because it's a New York company, that you're only gonna sell a CDL plan. They're not thinking over the road driver. So you do have to let them know that. To put the basic CDL on there. They'll put it on there, but you have to let them know. Now, that could also depend on who set it up for me. You know, you see what I mean? Like when you put in that depends on what person in corporate is setting that up, whether they're thinking they could have over the road drivers, let me add the regular CDL basic versus somebody else that's not thinking that. They're thinking, oh, it's a New York company. I'm only going to put the New York CDL on there. Is that making sense?
Yes.
So that depends on who on corporate sets that up when you put in the forms. But if you don't see it there when you set up the New York company, if you do not see both plans there, you then have to just call your region person and talk to them and let them know, hey, this is a New York CDL company, but my drivers, they got drivers that live in other places. They got drivers that live in New Jersey or whatever else they may live at that drive for them because they drive over the road. So I need to be able to offer them the CDLP basic as well. And then they will allow that CDL basic to be on there. As far as those forms, I've done all kinds of stuff as far as filling out, getting them in there in the system. A lot of times I don't like waiting for things like that. This is just me. So if anybody is impatient on that side like me, what I would tell you is I always used to do it. I asked corporate this years ago, and I'm talking 100 years ago. So it maybe changed now, but I don't think legally it's changed. I asked before, and I used to do this. I get people's authorization to sign for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I give people's authorization. I did that for years. So if Anthony is a driver and he's on the roll and I'm going to do a paper application for him because I can't submit his New York plan in on legal on Shield at Work because it doesn't allow me to do that plan for that person because they may be in a state that I don't have. You know, you guys know what I mean? That I'm standing somewhere, but I need a license in a state where blah, blah, blah. That whole mix-up thing, if you can't submit the application on Shield at Work, I will always call that driver and say, hey, look, I'm gonna ask you some questions. I'm gonna fill out an application for you because the way our process works is that I can't put this application in on my system because you have a South Carolina address and I don't have a South Carolina license. Even though you're standing somewhere else, I have to use your address in the system. So I need to do this on paper. Is that okay? Yes. Is it okay if I sign for you for the membership? Oh no, that's fine. I've never had a person tell me I couldn't sign for. And when I do that, then I submit it that way. So that's the way I do it, guys, whenever it's a paper application, because I don't all of the calling back and forth and asking them to adjust this and that. I'm not making time for all that. When I was out there doing business that way, I got a group, time is of the essence. I don't have time to be having somebody on the hold while I'm going over things back and forth with corporate about technicalities like that. Let me fill the paperwork app out. Let me sign on behalf of you, and then I submit that with my form, and that's the end of that. And I've never had that backfire. I've never had it come back and why did you sign for them? I've never had a person say they didn't tell me, that they didn't authorize me to sign for them. I've never had any fallout from that, but I do always ask the customer before I do it. So hopefully that's up on that. Good?
Yes, good stuff.
And thanks, George, for helping out with that. Anybody else?
No problem.
Any more questions? Any more concerns about the forms?
I'll throw another one out there. I do believe I know the answer to it, but just in case somebody don't. Same thing come out of Canada. They're here. They're in the States. They're getting citations. And the company is in Canada. Would it be the same way as New York, sign it up, put this, go through the same procedure, take the NAT, what state they're in. If we're licensed in it, great. If it's not licensed state, great. Also, I know that in Canada, they said they have to have either address here or PO box address. Are those the only two requirements? I mean, the only thing they do?
So, Sharanda, that's always That's always messy for me. You want to answer that? And I do know what you're talking about, Anthony, with the address thing and all of that stuff too, but it's just that Canada thing is like always, that's one of those things that whenever I've had a Canada situation, it's always determined, it's always some kind of mix up where it depends on who I get on the line with corporate, how that process is. You know what I mean? Because some corporate people know exactly what to do and some corporate people don't because they don't deal with it a lot. So Sharanda, what's your answer on that?
Well, that's what we train on the training. Yeah, they have to have an address in the United States, so you can't write them. So whether they getting citations here or not, they have to have an address here in the States to have a CDLP plan. So, I mean, that's always taught about on the training.
Gotcha.
Correct.
So they must have an address. And Isaac, your hand went up. You still got a question or?
Thank you.
Yes, well, it's not really a question, but I agree with Sharanda. And also too, I really feel that I think when it comes to the company, I think because for instance, like when these tickets are coming up and, we go into the system to find out about the company and how many, tickets that are being held on these trucks. Well, they always go to the main company. I'm more than sure, I believe. And so it goes back to that main address, if that makes sense, what I'm saying.
I don't know if I know what you mean by that. See if you can give me a little bit of clarity on that.
Well, okay. It's like in California, right? Okay, I have a company in California, but I have drivers going to Las Vegas, New York City, whatnot, right? So let's just say they get written up out there in New York. Okay, it shows out there, but when you look at the company, when you look at their records, it's gonna show on the company, the main company, corporate office, where those tickets came from. So when it comes to what the gentleman was talking about, how does that work? I mean, do we go by the first address or the PO box or whatnot? I'm just going to say that it has to do with the corporate office because, well, this is what I feel, how that answer would be taken.
So what I would say to that, Isaac, is, and thanks for commenting on that, because again, the thing with you making those kind of comments is that somebody else may be thinking that and not saying anything, right? So
right.
It doesn't matter that the company they drive for the tickets come back. If Sharanda is driving for a company that's in California, she gets a ticket in Georgia, right?
Yeah.
The ticket is going to be highly likely, because this could change, but highly likely the ticket is going to be written in Sharanda's, for Sharanda as the driver of that vehicle. You
Correct.
See what I'm saying? So Sharanda has the plan herself. And because Sharanda has a CDL plan, it doesn't matter what the company is that she works for is at. What's going to matter is what plan she has covering herself as the person that's submitting that ticket to the law firm.
Okay.
That's how that's going to work. So if she has the New York plan because she bought the plan in New York, and she gets pulled over in Georgia, when she calls her law firm, she's got that New York CDL plan. That's what's going to apply to her ticket, no matter where she got the violation at. That's why we try to get people to not sell that New York plan, to tell that driver to call them when they're not in New York, because the New York plan is a little bit rougher. It costs more not to have it, but it costs more to fight different things. Like certain things that are free with this plan, it costs with the New York plan. So if that guy that lives in New York signs up for a New York plan and gets pulled over anywhere else in the country outside of New York, he's still going to pay those fees, extra fees, because the plan that he purchased when he got enrolled.
Gotcha.
So the plan is directly going to be attached to that driver. It doesn't matter where the company headquarters is at. So, but I'm glad you brought that up because it allowed us to be able to say that because people may have not known that.
Yeah. Hey, great. Thank you.
Debbie?
Do you see my question?
Yes. Yeah, what do you do if you open up a group and a few people sign up? Do you go back a week or so later to see if you have any questions. Also, do you ask them to meet with other employees who couldn't come to the presentation and let them know? So in other words, what you're saying is you did a presentation, you didn't get enough apps to open up the group. So do you ask to come back to that group at another time, or do you ask to stay and just talk to some one-off employees so that you can get the group opened up? Is that the question you're asking?
Yes, I'm asking like, do you come back or, because like I went back to, a group that I had
Mhm.
and they had a lot of new employees, but yet there wasn't a lot of them at the meeting because they had other meetings going on. And so how do you do that? Then there was a couple of people that had questions, but they wanted to go home and talk to their spouse. So do you reach out to, well, seeing I don't have their numbers or anything. So
Right. No, that's a good question. And different people are going to do that differently. So Sharanda's going to chime in on this too. Different things. So one thing I used to do when I did a presentation, and I meant to make this earlier, but I didn't. And I would actually kind of get the employees to encourage other employees to get the membership. So if I do a presentation, whether it's a lunch and learn, bank draft, or it's employee benefit through payroll, it doesn't matter in this scenario. When I'm doing my presentation, now I know they had dropped the groups all the way down to where you only needed, a couple of points or premium dollars to open up a group. That's a little bit different because it's a little bit easier in that way. And I know they moved that a couple of different times. But when I was in my prime opening up groups, we needed 5 of them bad boys. And when we needed 5, we would get the audience to encourage other people to get it. So if I'm doing an enrollment and Sharanda says she's getting the membership, and all of you, everybody that's on this Zoom, you guys are all at the presentation, but Sharanda has already made it known that she's getting the membership. She's either filling out paperwork or she's said, oh, I'm gonna go ahead and get this, I need this, or whatever she says to allow me that she's getting it, alert me that she's getting it. If I realize that there are not enough people filling out paperwork, I would always say, guys, look, the discounted rate, and at the time, the discounted rate, I believe, was $3 or $4 or something at the time. I can't remember exactly. But whatever it was, I would say, look, guys, it's important to get the discounted rate. Plus, at that time, we had a $10 enrollment fee. So I'll be able to use that too as ammunition. Got a $10 enrollment fee plus the price of the membership is this if you don't get the discount rate. I need to have 5 applications in order to give you the discount rate. Ms. Sharanda is already saying she's getting the membership. Can we get 4 more people to get the membership so we can get the discount rate? And what would happen a lot of times, because they have a relationship with each other there, is Sharanda would start calling people out. Right? I've had this happen several times. So Sharanda's like, you know what, Anthony, you just got a ticket last week, so you know you need to be getting this membership. So now Anthony, he's looking at getting them, right? So this will happen. It will be just something that would happen within that place because they knew each other, they had a relationship, and they could say that kind of stuff to each other. So that's one thing that I would do to try to encourage more sales anyway. But let's say I still didn't get as many sales as I needed. I would stay. I would ask, could I stay to talk to the people who still needed to be talked to try to get a couple of more sales. There's times that I have gone back, if it's been a trucking company or another group or a lunch and learn, hey, can I come back at another day and sit here and talk to people in a room so I can get the rest of these applications. So those are different things that I've tried before too. So there's different ways you can do it. It just depends on what the company will allow you to do. I very rarely, probably never once, because I know I've seen people do this. I've never had to go back and tell the people who signed up originally that they can't get the discount rate because I couldn't get the group. That has never happened. Now I know that does happen to people, but I've never let it happen to me. I always go back and get the apps that I need. So that's how I would normally handle that. But Sharanda, you got a story or a scenario for that? And I see the hands. I'll get to those hands too in a second.
Well, it's not a limitation now to open up a group. You can open up a group with one app. That's the first thing. And then second of all, we're taught in a lot of the certification classes, because I'm taking this as not a CDLP group, I'm thinking. But you talk in employee benefits training that most people teach, they go ahead and some people are not muted like Jackie and Jackie not muted.
Go ahead, I'll mute it.
And so they you know, a lot of them teach you to go ahead and, you know, tell them, okay, yeah, when people say they need to get, you know, talk to someone, they have them to go ahead and at least put their name on an application. You know, they might not, some people may not get the payment information, but you at least have the contact information. So, you know, just like you said, Dunbar, you know, a lot of people do it a lot of different ways, but somehow you want to capture their contact information so you can have a way to follow back up with them. Sign-in sheets are always good as well. So, you know, maybe you just get a sign-in sheet. Sometimes people tell them they need to have everybody fill out an application, whether they're getting it or not, you know. And but somehow you want to be creative and figure out how to capture everybody's information so you can follow back up with them. And a matter of going back, you know, you just go back and follow up, but it's no limit now of opening a group. A group can be open. You can turn in a group authorization form without any apps now. So you can open a group with one app. It's not a qualifying group. A qualifying group has to have $150 worth of premium, but it's still a group and nobody else can go in on that group if you have that group authorization form signed and turned in.
Well, that's good stuff. And that's another good tip too that Sharana just mentioned. And George, I'm gonna get to you in here in a second. I know your hand up. I just want you to know I see it so that you know that I'm gonna have you talk here in a second. One of the things that I used to always do, and this was something, it was a staple. Like I had a lot of fun with my group. I always did a raffle. I even went to Amazon and ordered one of those gold raffle baskets. I used to do raffles 2 or 3 times per group, and I do sign-in sheets and the whole nine. Read the tickets that you tear off and give to them. I always made my enrollments in advance so that they would want me to come back, so I can come back as often as I could. So learn to have fun with your groups, but that sign-in sheet, very important, because it speaks to what Debbie was saying about being able to follow up on people. If you do a sign-in sheet, you got their name, their phone number, their email. Now, people are gonna put fake emails and all that kind of stuff, but you're gonna deal with that no matter what kind of sign-in sheets you have. So that's just something you gotta know to deal with. But generally speaking, you've got a sign-in sheet. Now you can reach out to people, you can call people and ask them or email them. You know, keep emailing them to follow up with them and see whether they're interested. You can even send out general emails to a group of people and say, you know, things like, you know, your will or whatever, natural disaster coverage, or just send stuff. I would typically, sometimes I used to send the emails that corporate was sent out to me as a client. I would take that email and I would forward it out to people who didn't have the membership yet and let them know this is the kind of a service that you could have if you had our membership. So you don't even have to reinvent the wheel. So those are all things you can do when you have a sign-in sheet, because now you're expecting people, people are expecting you to contact them to a certain extent. So we can talk about that too more deeper at another time, like how we do more of a fun event where, because I started doing a lot, before I stopped opening groups, I was doing a lot of workshops and stuff. I wasn't doing legal shield presentation. I was doing workshops in identity theft and wills and all that kind of stuff to get more enrollments, because I think I got burnt out on just doing the legal shield, and I wanted to separate myself from all the other legal shield presentations that were going on. So I started workshopping my people or workshopping companies and going in and saying, hey, can I come do an identity theft workshop or a will workshop, things like that, as opposed to, can I come present legal shield? Because I had gotten to a place where I was doing bank drafts anyway. I have a lot of bank draft groups. I kind of moved away from the payroll deduction side of it. Not that there's anything wrong with it. So if you're doing payroll deduction, keep doing it. That's a valid way to do it. You normally get more enrollments when you do it that way, when you go in. So that's a great way to do it. I just had a couple of bad experiences that affected me. So that's my filter doing that, because I had I had 3 groups that dropped, but 2 were big groups where the company went out of business, and another one, the owner of the company had a problem with the small business plan and dropped the entire group, and they had over 70 employees. So when that happened to me all at once, of course, obviously back at that time, I ended up being in the hole for a little bit when that happened. It messed up my persistency. So I just told myself I was going to do bank draft groups. I'd rather get less people doing enrollment and have more control over that. So that's what made me do that. Now, again, I'm not telling you to do that. do your employee benefits through payroll if that's what you want to be doing. If that's where you see your success at, keep doing it that way. That was just my experience. That's why I changed it. So George, we'll go ahead and go out to you before we close out.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So my question is, when you're filling out going back to the forms, when you're filling out the forms, does a business report sheet, should it accommodate the forms that you're sending into corporate? When you're filling out the group enrollment forms and that business report sheet, should it be accompanying the group enrollment form?
Unless something has changed, on the business report form, I would always fill that out on my original group entry. So if I'm opening up a group, it's got 10 employees, I enrolled 7 employees. When I turn in that authorization form and those applications, I would normally do a business report form because Shield at work wasn't open yet. I didn't have that open yet because it was a new group, so they weren't in that group. I mean, they weren't in there for me to do them electronically. Does that make sense? So I would do it that way. If I've got more than one person doing that group with me, I would do a business report sheet because now it's letting corporate know these memberships belong to this associate while I've authorized the right business on this particular group. So I would use the business report forms for that. If I did it the other way that Sharanda just said, where I sent in the authorization form ahead of time, opened up the group, is in my Shield at work, already set up. Now, if I go and do an enrollment and I pick up 10 applications, I can just put those in electronically. So I don't need to do a business report form because I'm just putting them in myself. But normally the first time when you open it up the group, if you've got apps already, you're gonna need to do that business report form unless you're gonna hold the apps, put the authorization form in, let the group open, and then submit the apps. After it gets opened, you can do it that way too. So that's my answer to it. Sharanda, you got a different response on that?
A business report sheet goes with any application that you open up for a group, if it's an application. So if you have a application, so if you have a small business plan and you're opening it up with a group, it needs a business report sheet. If you have an app that, like, I'm not licensed in Jersey, and if I got an app and the person's standing in Georgia, and I'm gonna upload that app for a group, it has to have a business report sheet. A business report sheet goes with any application connected to a group. And like Dunbar said, we haven't always had Shield at work or Legal Shield at work, but you still use it. Like you said, you use it for when you're uploading any application. That's how they know where that application goes. It goes, you can't just upload an application. They wouldn't know which group it is. And you can't just write the group number or whatever on the top. That's what the group report sheet is for. So any uploaded app for a group has to have a group report sheet. So like he used the example I use, if I send in a group report sheet and if I had an application for whatever reason, maybe a small business plan came afterwards, a group report sheet will go with that to make sure it goes with the group. But yes, a group report sheet goes with any application connected to a group that you're uploading. You have to have a group report sheet. Okay, George?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, guys, it's 9:46. So we're about to close out. In closing, know that there is, in Sharanda, you are the one teaching the CDLP next, right?
Yeah, with Alan, yeah, on the 29th.
So the 29th of April, there will be a CDLP training. It will be Sharanda Ivy and Alan Roman. So make sure you're plugged into that. Make sure you're putting it on your calendar, right? Save the date. Of course, most of you all will be in North Carolina this Friday, this weekend, I should say. I know some of y'all probably arrive on Wednesday, Thursday for the rest of the week. So, be careful traveling there. Sharanda, I'm assuming you're not doing your Thursday this week.
No Thursday night call. Nope.
Is there a blitz tomorrow or did they cancel the blitz?
As far as I know, it's going on. I'm not sure. I think so.
Okay, so check and make sure if the blitz, if they're not doing it, I'm sure they would have sent something out saying that they're not doing a blitz. But make sure you travel to North Carolina safely. I'll see you guys back here again Monday, and I may see some of y'all in North Carolina. I may. So if I see you, I'll holler at you. I'll tap you on the shoulder. I'm probably gonna just be moving around the North Carolina space, just so you know. So if I see any of y'all there, I'll definitely holler at you guys. And I appreciate you guys sticking with us, seeing us through here to 9:48. And we'll see you guys next week or in North Carolina. So everybody have a fantastic evening.
Great training.
All right. You too. Thank you.
Thank
Enjoy.
you. See you in Charlotte.
Bye.
Safe travels, everyone.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.